And if I had to be another person to stand up, if I think after really going through this and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Reed didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We're expected to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Reed's not going to fold. Karen Reed's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Reed movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. Oh, yes. Good afternoon, Massachusetts and the world that has been watching the LTL Media channel. I am your host, BLT, LTL, Brian, whatever you want to call me. Everybody has tons of different names for me. But we actually, we had some good food earlier that did have bacon in it. And kind of what Mazza got was I don't know, kind of like a BLT, but Mark MazzaMedia in the studio live today.
What's going on, Brian? Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being back. I don't think I've been in the studio since around November. So with Christmas and the winter and, you know, all that, it's been a while. So I'm happy to be back for the first time in your brand new studio, which is very, it's twice the size and it's pretty incredible looking in the studio.
It's very homey in here, I would say. It's
absolutely.
comfortable. It's comfortable. So.
Yep.
But no, I wanted to bring Mark back in. It's been quite a while since he's been here. We've been doing a lot of shows together, and with Mike from the Young Jerks, we have that kind of 3-panel show that we've been doing, and people are saying the fireplace in the back. They're laughing.
Oh really? Yeah. Oh really? Yeah.
I love it. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, fireside chats. I love this.
That's funny. Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just coming in and having some fun today. It's been a while since Mark and I have been in the same room together, but having Mark in here and then knowing what the implications and everything that's going to be going on Tuesday, I wanted to kind of hear his thoughts on it. But what I wanted to do, Mark, is I want to start this out, and I think maybe bring around some of the first, I had the earlier show with Boston Mike and Tom this morning, which was phenomenal, and you all need to go back and watch that. It was great. But I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit and get, how did you end up I don't think I ever asked you this before. How did you end up getting into this, the Free Karen Reed movement, and what got you started with all this?
Absolutely. Great question. So honestly, it was because of Turtle Boy. I had been a Turtle Boy follower, probably going as far back as I don't even know, honestly, back when he was probably not even a year or two into what he did with his blogging and all that, and used to follow that, especially being from the Worcester County area. Anytime there's going to be almost like a parody article exposing all the craziness that goes on in there, how can you not, as a Worcester County guy, find that entertaining? So that was very entertaining to watch. So at one point, my social media got hacked on Facebook, and down I went. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what happened here, but all my social media outlets suddenly got hacked one day in 2022, I think it was. And finally, I had got them all back up and running, and realized one day, I'm like, I don't really ever see any articles from Turtle Boy anymore. I wonder why. Then I realized, oh, that's right, because I have a new profile that I need to follow his page again. So I did. And it had been a while since I'd followed him, because I took social media time off from social media for quite a few months.
Yeah.
And went back on, and all of a sudden saw a Karen Reed article, and there was all these people holding signs with free Karen Reed, and I kind of chuckled a bit at first, not understanding the gravity of the situation or what it was all about. But I'm like, knowing, being a follower of Aiden,
Yeah.
for a long time, this was something I never really saw him do, which is lead a group of people outside of a courthouse with signs. And I'm like, oh, what is he up to now? What's going on here with Turtle Boy? So I'm like, it's been a long time. So I finally decided to read an article, especially one that came out a day or two later, which happened to actually just play during your intro video, which was when Karen and Alan Jackson were taking on the media, and Carl Dougal was out there, and she didn't do it, but we know who did it.
Yeah.
And all that. And I was like, whoa, and kind of stopped. And that was the moment where I kind of had a moment of revelation in terms of how serious this situation was. And I'm like, this is pretty uncanny to see why Karen Reed is, who I'd never heard of before. I don't even recall when the original news story broke. I might have heard it when it came out that day, but just, it's one story that goes in your ear and out the other. And ultimately I had said, this is really unprecedented to see someone out there on the courthouse steps with their attorneys and out there and talking about what's going on. And at that particular time, I made the decision to start reading about it, and pretty much figured I'd be into it for about a week or two, and then figured I'd lose interest.
Guess what?
Yeah. So that was about probably April 2023. And then I actually have a buddy, friend through a friend, I should say, it's from Canton and knows that he lived there. And he's pretty agnostic towards what goes on in his own town, to be honest. Well, not to criticize the guy, but he doesn't really seem to pay much attention to it. And I asked him at a buddy's birthday party in May, which was the next month. I said, hey, what the heck's going on in the town of Canton anyways? There's a lot of crazy stuff going on there. And he goes, well, you're going to have to talk to my wife and ask her. I don't really follow it. So I said, all right, well, I guess I will. And that was really around the time I noticed I was starting to kind of take more of a assertive approach to my thought patterns. So realistically, it was because I was a Turtle Boy follower. Social media was hacked. I got back on social media on new accounts, happened to refollow him. He was into this, read the articles, started to get really interested in it, and then started to get really fired up about it. And then I had my X page, probably going back to 2014, that was just there. I was never really using it. And I was kind of pretty turned off by Facebook ever since I had my account hacked. So I'm like, well, forget this. Because I had my original MazzaMedia page on Facebook too. And I had one on Facebook, one on X, and said, well, I'm not going to put it back on Facebook anymore. To heck with it. So I ended up going on X. And said, I'm going to start making a few posts on X, start talking about this, start, giving my thoughts and opinions. And really at that particular point, throughout the summer, I'd already had a show for years.
Yeah.
Sports.
You were like a sports show before.
Sports show, movie show. We even did shows on COVID when that was happening. And me and a couple of friends and my cousin would do that every week on Thursday nights at usually 8:00, sometimes 7:00, sometimes on Wednesday nights, and did that for years. And basically by September, I got so caught up in the Karen Reed case that I just wanted to talk about it on X and kind of really didn't want to do a show anymore. Kind of was really burnt out with doing shows and really just overwhelmed with a lot of other things in life. And so that's it. It's kind of like Batman, and this is your first movie reference. Bill Kilmer as Batman closing the Batcave forever and saying Batman's no more, and only to go back in the Batcave after something happens in that movie where it's attacked, and grabs his last bat suit and goes back and tries to save the day. I kind of felt like that was like kind of for me, I could identify with that character, like kind of feeling like a chapter of my life was over with streaming. And then all of a sudden thinking to myself one day, which was actually Richie, our good friend Richie, had kind of been messaging me on the side. He goes, hey, I saw you calling to the Young Jerks. I saw you calling to the Young Jerks again. I see that you used to do shows on your YouTube channel. You should start being a voice in this. And at first I'm kind of reluctant. I'm like, I've done that. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't, if I start doing shows, it's going to take up my life. He's like, no, but do it. So he kept pushing me, giving me that elbow. And finally at that same particular, after about a week or two of that, occasionally we'd talk, message. He would kind of convince me to kind of realize two things. I should do a show. But the first thing was I kind of started to realize that I was really in a burnout cycle. I was burnt out from doing shows all the time. I just needed a break, especially from doing it from 2019.
Yeah.
Really before Super Bowl 53 with the Patriots against
Football
the Rams.
reference. His is sports reference.
That's it. That's
his first sports reference.
That's it. Yeah, you got it. So I did that. And really I started doing MazzaMedia's shows because I used to do pre-tape shows that I put on the channel. Of thoughts, sports movies, and then before Patriots were in that last Super Bowl, which ended up being their last Super Bowl, I went back and
second reference.
Right, exactly. I got in contact with my friends. I said, hey, let's do a show. Let's do a Super Bowl preview show. So after the Super Bowl was over, I'm like, well, we did that one show. That was fun. It was supposed to be a one-time deal, live show. Then everyone's like, let's do a review of the show, the Super Bowl. I said, okay, fine, let's do that. So we did. And I'm like, okay, so we did the Super Bowl preview, Super Bowl review, done. Next week, Mark, we should do another show. Okay, I'll come up with something. Then every single week, that's what it became.
Building, yeah.
Right, for years. So from 2019, February 2019, or maybe January 2019, September 2023, that's what my focus was on. And then I took that break and really was burnt out. Kind of took some time to rest. And then, like I said, Richie kind of reached out.
Kept poking me.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I kind of realized I wasn't burnt out anymore. And I'd already kind of quietly done some taped shows.
Yeah.
For Karen Reed that I was kind of sneaking in. I actually had one guy that would follow me.
Yeah.
And then in September, I just kind of went cold turkey from what I recall and stopped. And then I said, all right, well, maybe Richie's right. Maybe I should just, because I think one thing that's important about being a Karen Reed supporter is that when you look at everybody, it doesn't matter what they're doing, whether it's being on a show or whether you're a moderator, whether you have your own website, you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube, Facebook, X, whatever it is that you do, whether you're boots on the ground, whether it's you're doing fundraisers, whether you're helping, just do whatever you can to help out. I think what's been so great is that everybody's looked at themselves and they've said, what can I bring to the table? What is it that I like to do? What can I do? And for me, I've always been a talker. I've been a writer. I've been a talker.
Yeah.
It's obviously on X, I found out real quick that a lot of people wanted to follow my page. On YouTube, same thing. I was very, very grateful for that. I was very shocked by that, honestly. Because I was just like I just don't expect it. And I was so grateful for all these folks that cared about my opinion. And I think at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about what I can contribute. And ultimately, I wanted to contribute to Karen Reed by just doing whatever I could. If I could be someone on X making comments, if I could be someone on YouTube making comments, if that's something that we can do, that'd be great. So a lot of what I like to do on my channel, and most people know this, is how can I, raise awareness for standouts? I like to do shows that promote standouts. I like
fundraising. You do a lot of fundraising.
A lot of fundraising.
Yeah, a lot of fundraising.
So it's kind of like that. So as much as I enjoy doing shows in general, which is something I've always enjoyed doing, I want my programming to obviously be to at least.
Sorry, my ear is clogged.
That's okay.
It just got clogged all of a sudden.
That's all right. That's okay.
He's probably like, what is he doing?
Yeah, I'm looking at you. That's all right. You were off camera, so you can let it slide. Yeah, you're good.
Trying to get my ear to pop.
Right. There you go.
Sorry.
That's okay. But like I said, I wanted to basically see how I could contribute to all of this from where I stood. And where I stood is not close to Dedham. It takes me 15 minutes to an hour to get to Dedham or get to Canton or wherever. And I realized really quickly I was not going to be somebody that was a Karen Reed supporter. I was going to be able to be boots on the ground. And for me, I felt like my contribution to this, my way to help Karen, support Karen, and also participate with everybody else would be to do more of an online thing, which is basically X, basically YouTube, basically continue to push and promote and everything I could to help her for my own effort individually, which contributes to the whole, which is really what the essence of the Karen Reed Defense Fund's all about, is people that make individual financial donations based on what they can each afford that contributes to the whole. And right now it's over $678,000 and continues to push. And it's always important, as we do on your show and many other shows, and just to make sure we're always reminding people that they can donate to Karen Reed, help her out, continue to participate in that one way. And honestly, if that's the only way you can help Karen Reed, that's the most effective way. Besides, I would say holding a sign and donating are probably the two most effective ways. If you're out somewhere with a standout in your local town, especially in Norfolk County, that's one of the greatest ways that you can contribute. And for Karen, it's all about being able to have the financial compensation. Now, the Twitter trolls, other people out there have been very, antagonistic of Karen. They've tried to insult her for raising money. They've tried to criticize her for any time she goes out to eat or anytime she wears something nice. At the end of the day, Karen Reed reserves the right to basically have a nice life for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And if, whatever decision she makes, that's hers. But those donations are going directly to Alan Jackson's defense fund. When you make that donation, it goes to his defense fund. That money is being used for her defense. So people like to try to make it all about money all the time and criticize anybody for money, but those are just the wrong opinions. And ultimately, I think sometimes it's that there are people that just don't have a positive opinion of Karen. They want to tear her down any way they can. And unfortunately for them, they're wrong. Karen has been very earnest and has been very grateful for her supporters for a long, long time. And I think, too, this Commonwealth has really done everything they can to burn her finances and also burn the contributions that people like you, myself, and almost everybody else out there has done to make a financial contribution to her defense fund and really try to raise the stakes. Instead of supporting her for one trial, now it's become 2 trials. She could potentially be at risk for a 3rd trial or more if that things don't end in this potential 2nd trial. So it's very important stuff. And there's a lot of people out there like to criticize Karen, and they like to criticize Aiden Turtle Boy. They like to criticize attorneys like Mark Betterow and Nan Gallagher that speak out. They like to criticize just about everybody from Nick Rocco, and the list goes on. And that's really all they really have is criticism. These people out there are not very positive. They don't live their lives very positively. We are out here. We see someone like Karen Reed that's in distress, that has basically the entire system from local PD to state PD to the Commonwealth to perhaps even the state acting against her to try to break her down and ruin her life. And ruin a woman's life for a crime that she did not commit. Put her on the stand for a crime that she did not commit. Have her be the fall person for a crime she didn't commit, which is an absolute charade and something that should not continue on. And that's part of the reason why, in my mind and my heart, why I've continued to do this. I've oftentimes taken time to say, maybe I'm getting too involved in this. Maybe I'm taking too much time on this. But at the end of the day, Karen Reed doesn't get the opportunity to walk away from this. She never asked for this. This was put on her life. This was something that people did where they cornered her and said, guess what? Tag, you're it. You're our patsy. You're going down for this because we're not going down for this. The system's not going down for this. And Karen Reed doesn't have the right, the freedom to walk away. We do. We could all pack up and be done tomorrow if we wanted to. But I think what it is when it comes to your mind and your heart and everything that you do in your life, it's a matter of, are you going to stand there and help this person out? Or are you going to let Karen just be there by herself and not contribute? And I think of all that, that's kind of the essence of why so many people continue to be such staunch reporters. We have people that are down in Bourne every weekend for months, no matter the weather, no matter whether it's hot, no matter whether it's even hot and there's ice on the ground, that are out there. We have people all across the state that are continuing to do that, continuing to fight, continuing to get the name out there. And I think at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Karen Reed can't stand alone because nobody can stand alone against such a atrocious, massive conspiracy or cover-up, I should say, or frame job like this. It does take people in the country or in the state to do this, and maybe even outside the country and the world.
This is worldwide now.
100%.
It's worldwide.
100%.
We had this morning the chat. I had people from Finland, Australia, Scotland. I mean, Canada. It's just like all over the place.
Right.
It's a worldwide phenomenon now. Yeah,
absolutely.
Let me just get to this really quick, Mazza. I just want to let everybody know 25% of all donations that come in today, we're going to kick back to Karen Reed's defense fund. So Dennis has kicked it off with a $20 Canadian. We're going to round that up to $20 US. And he says, need to keep the awareness until McAlberts are in jail. Well past Karen being free. And I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. I mean, so going back to how you got involved, how your story evolved, in what ways has this changed your life?
Oh boy, that's a big question. That's a change.
What ways have this changed your life?
Well, I play video games a lot less. That was the first change I noticed. I used to play a lot of video games in my life, and all of a sudden it was like I noticed I would spend usually after work, I'd usually cool down by maybe playing a video game for at least an hour a day. That suddenly started to drop off significantly almost immediately in the summer of 2023 was the first thing I noticed. And then honestly, I never expected to be, people would say, oh, how long have you been a true crime guy? But honestly, I've never been a true crime guy at all, other than maybe watching like Aaron Hernandez or the Boston Marathon bombing, things like 9/11, things that have happened over the years that have been very significant. O.J. Simpson, even maybe Tanya Harding, remember that incident?
Nancy
That
Kerrigan.
was wild. Yeah. That was big because Nancy Kerrigan was a skater in the state.
Yep.
Those are sometimes I get interested in that stuff. Beyond that, I have police officers in my family, present and retired.
Wow.
Local PD. Yep. So I've been into that. A lot of military folks in my family. I think we've had a family member represent every branch of the military
Let
historically.
me pause you there for a second. So you say you have police in your family. What do they think about you talking about this?
I don't talk to my cousin. I don't talk to my cousin about that at all. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
some things you just keep best unsaid, and that's fine. That's your business.
That's exactly. We don't talk about it. So I don't dare go in that. I don't dare go in that. You know, have that discussion. I leave it alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I talked to other cops though. My friends that are outside of the state. I got a good friend of mine that lives in New Jersey now, and he's been a cop over there, and he'll tell you about a lot of corruption that's going on in that state. There's a lot of it, and I actually would dare to venture that it's probably even worse in New Jersey than it is here. I think in the Karen Reed, you know, and Tom said this earlier on your show. He actually thought that the town of New Bedford.
Yes,
was
New Bedford.
Worse than,
I'm like,
was worse than Canton.
Did you see the dial-up modem in my head kick in?
Right.
I was like, all right, New Bedford. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, he said it was worse than New Bedford. Now, I don't doubt that. It might seem shocking that Canton may not be perhaps the most corrupt, but I think what happened here is that this particular incident happened to cross upon the path of people that got very, very desperate. And I'm not saying the town's not corrupt. I'm saying the town is certainly corrupt, but maybe the reason why someone like Tom doesn't think it's as corrupt as another town might be because maybe they're more actively acting against people, or maybe this particular town is acting under circumstance, meaning, you know, like Boston Mike talked about earlier today. He acted out against them. They went after him. You know, something happened to Karen and John. They, you know, so I can't speak for the town. I cannot speak, but that's just maybe, I'm trying to venture what maybe Tom meant by that. But overall, I think that this is, there's a lot of shady stuff going on in that town. And there's,
I'd say
there's, it's beyond shady. It's right in your face. Obviously you have town members that are dealing with a lot of stuff over there. It's not great to see them go through that. It's very sickening that town citizens have to go through that. And Karen decided to spend some time in that town one night. And this is the way it all ends, is that basically her boyfriend is murdered and that she is now being framed for a murder. This is all this just to go out, you know, have some fun at the waterfall, have some fun at the CF McCarthy's that particular night. I mean, people go out to have drinks and have dinner all over the place, all over the world, all the time. And for Karen to be able to not have the ability to go out one particular night, and then her boyfriend's life has ended. And then she's basically fighting for her freedom now. I always say they tried to kill John. They killed John physically, and they tried to kill Karen's freedom, basically, is what's going on here. And it's sickening. It's sad. It's an absolute disgrace. And so I'd say, how does this change my life? I never thought I'd be involved in, you know, speaking out about something like this. I never saw my future being YouTube that was anything about sports and movies, quite honestly. And I never thought I'd be ending up in a studio like this, more and more and more like, hey, let's get your opinion. You know, can you come on the show and talk with us and let us know your thoughts? But it's a lot, and it's changed a lot of people's lives. And a lot of people have been heavily involved in something like this. And I think of, you know, people out there that have said, hey, I've never protested before in my life. I haven't either. Because when I think of protesting, I usually think of like a political protest. But I never thought that I'd be out there like a standout, like spending my Saturdays or a Monday holiday, like a Labor Day or a Memorial Day or whatever, out there holding signs and standing with people holding American flags and Free Karen Reed shirts. And it's like, is this really, I never thought that would happen. But, you know, at the same time, I think that that's what the heart of all that is people that actually care about something with a lot of passion. And, you know, that's how I felt too. I had a lot of passion. I really related to the people that were Karen Reed supporters wholeheartedly, because this is something that's a serious issue. And I think that we have a duty, not only to Karen, but to ourselves. And a lot of times people make the argument, you know, this is not only Karen, this could be anybody. And we've talked about this. Enrique Delgado Garcia, Justin Root, Sandra Birchmore, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and for Christ's sakes, I know that's not in this state, but Robert Brooks, you know, anything like that. What's going on in that case? I just want to get a couple of these super chats out of the way. And I just want to let everybody know 25% of all donations during the show are going to go to Karen Reed's Defense Fund. Just give me a second. Let me read through these really quick. Dennis, a Canadian friend, again, $50 Canadian. We're going to make that $50 US. After Karen Reed is free, you two and others need to collect the money for pie, etc., to conflict those entitled bastards and bitches. How long to die in cold? I think he's saying that we need to get back at these clowns, and that's why we have these shows, so we can get back at them and speak the truth. Facts matter. $50 super chat. Thank you so much. Said, wore my Free Karen Reed hat yesterday, and 3 people in Arkansas gave me Hell yeah. People are becoming more aware, and they are becoming more aware because of people like you at home that can just keep passing this message along. And like Mark was saying, you know, if you can contribute, that's a beautiful thing. If you can just make a sign and stand out in a corner, it doesn't even have to be a fancy sign. It can be a handwritten sign and stand out on that corner and help out. It does make a big difference. And I have a Cash App here that I want to just get to really quick. Gary, thank you so much for the Cash App. $10. I do appreciate that. And again, 25% of your donation today will go back to Karen Reed's defense fund. And then we have Leona Henderson with $5 says, Mazza is a great speaker. I love listening to him talk. That's why I have him on the show all the time.
Thank you.
I love having Mazza on the show, and I love doing shows with Mazza, and I love the Mike from the Young Jerks too. I think we have some really great panels, man. It's fun. And we had that show with Todd McGee the other day, the four of us on the panel, which was awesome.
A great show.
Yeah, it was really, really good. So I appreciate that. Thank you. What do you think? Why do you think the public gravitates to this case so much?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, and you look at the entertainment industry of Hollywood, a lot of movies almost always have a romantic, love-based theme. You look at a movie like Titanic. I remember being a teenager, and my sisters and mother were all about that movie, and you had just a romantic angle. And I think that you look at a lot of stories out there, there's always some kind of the guy gets the girl, the men and woman meet, they fall in love. That's kind of been an echoing theme throughout society. You look at a book like Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, a romance novel that ended in tragedy, right? You look at Karen and John.
By the way, sorry to get you. LV Cops in the room, by the way. Good to see them. I saw Nan in here as well. I just want to shout out to all the I'm so sorry.
Awesome.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So you look at everything in life, whether it's books, movies, whatever, people in general tend to gravitate towards romance, love, tragedy, heartbreak. These are themes that have perpetuated the entertainment industry, Hollywood industry, going back years, movie industry, beyond the movie industry, books. This has been a thing that people are always captivated by. Not that I've ever watched Lifetime in my life, at least I don't think so. Maybe when Unsolved Mysteries was on back in the 90s.
Yes.
There we go.
Was it Stax? Robert Stax.
Yeah, there's a whole network dedicated to stories of whatever, right? So you look at Karen, you look at John, at the very heart of this whole thing is a romantic story, a romance story that went terribly, terribly wrong. That is the basis for a gripping story. I was thinking about this in the car when I drove in. This is basically what people gravitate, because everybody, you remember the movie Fast and Furious came out? Michelle Rodriguez was interviewed and she said, why is Fast and Furious so popular? She goes, it's popular because everybody can relate to driving a car. Everybody drives a car when they go to work, right? Or they go someplace. You drive a car. You and I took a ride down to have lunch. You hopped in your car, your Fast and Furious looking car, right? We hopped in, drove down the street. You can relate to the movie because you drive a car. It's the same thing when you look at Karen and John. Everybody here, for the most part, has either been in a relationship, in love with someone, or had something go wrong. They can relate to, how many women are Karen Reed supporters that can relate to Karen because she had a boyfriend or whatever? And these are women that have had boyfriends, husbands, whatever, and they can relate to Karen, or men that have whatever. And honestly, I think a lot of times, even though we don't talk about that stuff psychologically, that is really the deep-rooted 101 basis for why I think a lot of people gravitate to this story, because the media knows that this is juicy because, again, it goes back to things that are themes that are very popular in society. You look at the royal wedding that happened way back when. That was all over television. My mom was all into that stuff because there was a royal wedding. That
Princess Diana.
Is stuff that is gripping to people. Tragedy happens. When the Boston Marathon attack happened, it was all over the local news. That's all they talked about. When the shootout happened in Watertown, these are the things: romance, love, and violence. The old adage: sex and violence sells. These are stories that get people's attention. When people say these people are in a couple, and this particular woman was accused of murdering her own boyfriend, that sells itself in terms of, I'm talking about local media, internet attention, people tuning in. People get very into that stuff in our society. And I personally think that's why this has such a big gravitation. Now, beyond that, we just mentioned unsolved mysteries. That's another thing that really gravitates people. You look at the UFO coach, right?
Yeah.
Space aliens, UFOs.
Aliens is everywhere.
How many books and movies came out in the 60s, 70s about do aliens exist? Does Bigfoot really exist? Mystery also sells as well. And that's the same thing with the Karen Reed case. It has love. It has tragedy. It also has mystery. Good old who shot JR on Dallas mystery. It's a who done it.
It was a dream.
That's right. And while we might joke and find that funny, this is ultimately at a very base level why I think this is such a captivating story, because it has all these elements that people usually gravitate to, and it's all blended together. Beyond that, what else does it have? What else sells in movies? Copland, Jack Reacher, Serpico, conspiracies, JFK assassination, which really captivated people's minds about the fate of our government, the state of our government, and everything that went on in this country for a long, long time. A lot of people don't trust our government. So there's also the conspiracy element. Again, things that sell books, sell movies, sell news articles, sell A&E specials. These are all topics that the Karen Reed case has. It hits from many different levels across the board. And for me, it was about the corruption. It was about a woman being framed for a crime she didn't commit. That's where I came in. I said, what do you mean she's being framed for a murder she didn't commit? What do you mean she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail for a crime she didn't commit? For me, that's the stuff I get into. I talked about it before. Jack Reacher, I love that movie. I think that's a fantastic movie. JFK assassination has always appealed to me. I've always found that extremely gripping to read and listen to. And for me, that's how I came. That's really what caught my mind. When you asked me how I came into that, was basically when she was out on those steps. I didn't do this. We know who did this. Somebody did this. And all these forces are coming against her. And for me, I have a fighter's mentality. You know, played basketball, do martial arts. My high school teammates will tell you. My college teammates will certainly tell you. You know, when it comes time to get rowdy on the basketball court and start throwing people around, that's usually what I did. Okay. That's usually how I conducted myself, because it's about, you know, getting out there and getting in the thick of things and not backing down and standing tall. And for me, that's where kind of really where I gravitate towards all of this and really fight and really big into this is like, I don't like the fact that Karen, who's pictured on that wall over there, is fighting for her life and having to spend $5 to $10 million to fight for her freedom for a crime she didn't commit. $5 to $10 million roughly. It's insane. It should make you sick, and it should anger you. And that's really, honestly, when it comes down to my mind and my heart, you know, people have said, oh, Mazza, you're just another grifter. I really don't care what anybody has to say, because I know who I am. I know what I have to say. And I know at the end of the day, you know, I'm fighting for Karen Reed alongside everybody else and backing her up. And I think that's a big part of this. And to me, it's a big, is this a hobby? I don't know, but it's a passion project. It's a passionate thing that I'm doing. I could be doing anything with my time right now. I mean, I could be going anywhere, you know, doing anything right now. I could be playing video games right now, trying to get to the 8th level of Super Mario Brothers again for the 90th time. I don't know. But to me, maybe it's just being a different age. I'm no longer that 20, 30-year-old kid anymore. You know, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm starting to see things a lot more seriously in life. And when I see what's happening to Karen, you know, her whole freedom's on the line. And that makes me sick, Brian.
It's one thing that I've always loved about you is your honesty.
Yeah.
And I've always, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never heard anybody put the Karen Reed case in that perspective of the whole, you know, movie culture and sex and violence. It's a great analysis of, did I say that word right? Analyzation of this whole thing. You know, you look at the culture that we've all been brought up in, and movies and comic books and superheroes and love and war and sex and violence. And it has all of those things. And I think that's what draws a lot of, and I say this, true crimers to true crime. I also think this too, that if you have I always say I have a puzzle solving mind. I like to put puzzles together and figure out, you know, how can we complete this puzzle? So I've always been someone like that, or someone to tackle, like I was saying earlier when we sat down, I said, geez, I should have went to school for audio visual. I like to figure out how all these cameras work and audio works and all this stuff. And we were talking about that before we started the show. And I said, I should have been doing this stuff because I love it. But I had to figure out how to do this. It wasn't just like, you know, I plugged the camera in and it happens. You got to figure out how all this stuff goes. So it's crazy. Let me get to some of these super chats. We'll add them up here. Let's see. We had a $10 from Papa George. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Dennis, again, hitting in with another $10 Canadian, saying, hit the like button. Let's go. Pi is for private investigators. So he's saying getting a private investigator or other ways of putting their smirkle asses behind bars. I love that. That's funny. We have Amor Valesi checking in, saying another reason is that the sheer length of time it has gone on, and people always want to know, how could this happen? I think that's a great point as well. And then we have parachutes and pirouettes.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Right.
We have a $5 super chat there. I got captured into the case because of both the MS, I'm sorry, I'm reading this wrong, because both have MS. She's only a few months older than my daughter. Okay, so Karen with MS, her MS diagnosis. And then Amwar Valesi's again, $2 says, yes, that's Mr. Grifter to you trolls. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I always look at it, everybody says, oh, they're grifters and they're just doing this for money and blah, blah, blah. Like, I know who I am. I know why I do this. I know what I do to give back to the community. I know what I do to give back to Karen Reed. I don't have to explain anything to anybody.
Sure.
I look at it in the basic sense of this. Look, you all watch mainstream media.
Yeah.
You all watch Fox News or CNN, whatever your local station is of choice, or whatever station of a choice. You don't think that the reporters or broadcasters on there aren't getting paid a salary? Right. You don't think that Ted Daniels, when he's out there asking a question in front of Karen Reed, that he's not getting paid? Of course he is. Right. Of course he has every right to do that. He's working. Right. This is a passion of mine. I know it's a passion of yours. Right. And we deserve to do what we're doing, to be on this platform and monetized and talked about. And, I don't have to explain nothing to anybody. I know who I am. Yeah. I know who I am.
For sure.
I know who I am.
For sure.
So, I look at it and I look in the sense of like, why you thought the public gravitates to this. What do you think culturally this is going to do to Massachusetts after this all completes? I mean, we've seen such a major shift where I feel because of the Karen Reed case, I think it's woken a lot of people up to all the entities that control our state as far as law enforcement. We've now started to look more into the state police. We look at the DA's offices. We research more of our government now. We're getting involved. We're protesting. We're standing up for rights. I think this has been a great thing for Massachusetts, where I've looked at for, hundreds of, a couple hundred years. I go back to the Boston Tea Party. It was like 250 years ago. We fought back against tyranny and corruption, but here we are, like one of the most corrupt states in the country. Sure. It's just crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But culturally, what do you think this is going to ultimately do at the end of the Karen Reed trial, when she's acquitted and walks out of those courtrooms acquitted?
I'm thinking there's going to be a shakeup in the state. This is, of course, I'm anticipating that in this scenario, it would probably take the feds to get involved at a very high level and really sweep people out, up to and including, of course, the DA in Norfolk County would probably be as Tom talked about on your show earlier today, the primary target and all that, it appears. I would say, unfortunately, what happens in this particular state is that it's like evolution. Sometimes things don't change. They simply evolve, and while they evolve with different people and different players, other people just seem to take their place. So my big concern is that even though I think the most we have to hope for is that the particular players that are involved go down, but my big concern is that ultimately other people will take their place and then continue on in their own merry way with corruption and doing, operating the state their own particular way. So I think sometimes that's what does happen in a lot of states. Massachusetts obviously appears to be certainly one of them, where they do get somebody out due to controversy. It's like in the NBA. Tim Donaghy had gone to jail for rigging NBA games.
Yeah, rigging games.
Right. And then they get him out of there. And then you watch the 2010 finals when the Celtics and Lakers, and the referees are blowing the whistle on the Celtics left and right. And before you know it, the Lakers come back and win, right? And in sports to this very day, people think that the referees are helping the Kansas City Chiefs win. At least they helped them get to the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
And, then you see what happens there. So my honest opinion is, even though you try to get rid of some of these bad apples, and even if we do succeed, unfortunately, I think that might be the most we have to hope for, is that the particular players in this go down. But I don't know if we're ever going to fully ever change the system. I think it's going to be a battle to the end of time. Quite honestly, generation after generation, it's certainly been an issue in any state and really in this country for a long, long time, spanning many decades. I think that unfortunately, we may not ever really end that level of corruption. So long as people are in power and power corrupts, that's always going to be an issue in society. And I think that's something that goes back centuries, not only in this country, but in our world as well. Unfortunately, people rise to power and authority, and the people beneath them don't like the way they do it. Unfortunately, to protect themselves, unfortunately, they'll dig deep to see what they need to do to make sure that they hold on to their power by any means necessary. And I think that in this particular situation, that's what you're saying. So I'd say the most we have to hope for is that all the names that people are always mentioning and talking about are the ones that go down. But beyond that, I'm sure other people will rise up and carry their torch in their own way. And unfortunately, the problem will still go on. That's my honest thought.
I think the good thing about it, though, it has woken up a lot of people to things that they probably weren't looking at before.
Correct.
I think, bringing this out, making people aware of just this. But then, like, if you look at, let's just say, Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia, if we didn't have our eyes on Karen Reed, we probably never would have thought, even in our mind, this would have just been, it would have been a blip on the news screen, and we went, oh, okay. But now knowing, following Karen's case, Sandra Birchmore, just en route, and the list goes on, and believe me, the list is way too long. But I think it's woken a lot of people up to being more aware of what's going on. But we need more people to stand up. That's the biggest thing. Stand up and fight back. And it's nice that people are starting to use their voice and do that. And I've met so many people through this movement where I've been out, at a standout or at the courthouse steps, or just walking down the street, and they're saying, hey, because of you, because of your show, because of Mazza's show, Mike's show, whoever's show, Turtle Boy, this has built a fire inside of me, and I'm proud to go out and wear my Free Karen Reed hat or my t-shirt. And then if someone asks me about it, I'll stand up and say something, or if they fire back, I'll use my First Amendment right and fire back and say something in return. Do you see that? I mean, I saw a lot of that where people were afraid, like when I was standing down there at the hearings, and then you start seeing them at the trial, and they're the biggest ones with the pom-poms to the sides now, which is kind of like woke people up, which was awesome.
Yeah, I think that the importance of what we do, whether that's standouts or even similar functions, sometimes we have charity nights, fundraiser nights, for Aiden or Karen, or dinners, at the tavern. Hundreds of people got together at the tavern recently in Dedham, I believe. I think having a show like this is great because it consistently, just like on X or on the Facebook groups, we're constantly keeping conversation going amongst one another, and that continues the momentum going, which I think is extremely important. You look at the chat right now. You look at all the people that are active in chat. These are people that are not only active in this chat or my chat, but many other shows as well. These people are very, very invested in this. And they're out there. Like you see Scott McGinnis, I see many other people. These are people that are out there on the front lines. They're doing a great thing. And I think, a show like this is good because we're talking about it. If we didn't have shows like this, then, the conversation, or even the internet. I mean, the internet, the ability to talk on how many people have been on the Facebook group for a year or two now or more, and they bring up their points, they bring up their questions, they bring up things they find out. People respond to that. They engage in conversations. They post about meetups, standouts, everything that they're doing right now. These are important because these are momentum-based things. Every time someone talks about it online, that creates momentum. It keeps this going. It keeps conversation going, which is incredibly important to Karen Reed because we need momentum. And the momentum is very good. It's actually picked up a lot since last Tuesday after what happened in court. Because again, people got that sniff again for all the corruption that's going on and what they're trying to do to Alan Jackson right now, and going after him about all that has become a very big concern. And a lot of people are very, very concerned about what's going on. So I think that, that's why anything we're doing to create momentum, even standouts, we did that big standout, I think a month ago. A lot of people were out in Dedham that day.
I was sick.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember you announcing, I can't make it. I'm sick. You said,
I have fever, 102. It's crazy.
It's the only
crazy.
Prescription's more cowbell, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. I love it.
There you go.
Let's read some of these super chats off. I love it.
Got it. I'm quick like that, man.
It's so good. I love it. I love the movie references too. He always gets one or two in. Let's see here. We have Technical Out, $10, says, this trial lawyer is watching this case with furious anger. I started out as a prosecutor and had great mentors there. No prosecutor I worked with would have brought this case. No evidence. So that's a trial lawyer saying there's nothing there. Janelle, thank you so much for the $10. Says, thank you to the both of thank you both for all that you do. You are so sincere with great hearts and generosity. Something is rotten in the state of Massachusetts.
Sure.
I mean, that's what's going on here. It is a rotten. All right, let's talk about Tuesday. We talked about it at lunch.
Yeah.
I just look at a situation that everybody I think got very overwhelmed with panic when this first happened. Oh my God, like what's going to happen? I saw it kind of pulling 50-50 in some of the Facebook groups on X. We had people that were kind of freaking out, and then you had people on the other side that are just going, well, look, relax. Do you really think that Karen's team would put her into a position to hurt her case in any way? Personally, I don't. I think Alan Jackson and that team is way smarter than that to put Karen in any type of position.
Yeah.
And, what I noted through all of this, going back and watching the hearing this Friday night, is when Hank Brennan was bringing up all the ARCA experts and getting into that details of the emails and the conversations back and forth. I don't know. Looked a little nervous to me. He was kind of shaking. And then when you start kind of shuffling papers and stuff, in my mind, I think you have high anxiety about what you're talking about and what you're doing. But I think Karen's team's going to bring it on Tuesday, and the Commonwealth needs to be ready. What do you think, Maz?
I was a little bit taken off guard by that when that initially happened. Really, on Bev's behavior really kind of stood out to me in terms of how she was acting, how she called a recess. I do ultimately think that this is a desperate attempt by them, and I cite the reason why as being the fact that,
about this.
Correct, that the prosecutor was so shaky. He was nervous. He was unsure of himself, including the judge, who was shaky and unsure of herself as well. I personally think, and this is a sports reference, is that a lot of times when you see a team out there in a game and they're behind and they're losing, they oftentimes try to force a play. And when they force a play, sometimes that's a high risk play. Yeah. And when there is a high risk play, a lot of times the ball gets intercepted or something bad happens, or there's a forced shot or an errant pass or whatever. And I see that's what's happening here. If you ever watch a sports game, typically you never see like you look at the most recent Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles. You don't really see the Eagles trying to force plays because they're up comfortably 34-0 in the Super Bowl. It's the same thing with Karen Reed and her defense team. They don't have to force plays. They don't have to try to make passes that aren't there. They don't have to take shots that are too far away from the hoop because, again, they have the facts on their side. They know exactly the set of cards that they're playing with, and they know exactly how to play them appropriately. And they know that they do not have to overplay their hand. Even in the game of poker, a lot of times there'll be bluffers. They put all their chips out there, try to really wager high, bet big, and try to get someone else to, fold, basically.
Yes.
And I think that's essentially the kind of game that's being played here in court. As you're talking about, a prosecution does not have evidence on their side, does not have facts on their side, is very desperate to make something happen right now, and wants to try to create any kind of element that they can to try to throw off the defense or create more obstacles for the defense that may cause them to focus more on issues like this instead of the more important issues, which is preparation for the trial right now and also preparation for the motion to dismiss. And I think that's really, when you look at all this, what's really going on is they're, again, trying to throw obstacles.
Smoke and mirrors.
And this has been going on throughout this hearing. It also went on gravely during the first pretrial hearing as well last year. And this is the tactic, is to try to throw them off their game. It's like when Deflategate happened for the Patriots. That came out. It was a big distraction for the Patriots heading into the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. They had to do more media appearances, take care of all this stuff. Belichick was talking, like, I don't know what's going on, but they had to battle us going into the Super Bowl. And the media was all over that as well. And then ultimately, once it came time to the game, the Patriots were well prepared. They ended up winning the game by the skin of their teeth, but they did win. And I think with the defense, this is something that's being thrown at them as an obstacle or distraction. It's essentially an amped up controversy where there's really nothing there. And to your point that you made earlier, Alan Jackson has been very careful about what he's done and knows what to do and is not going to slip up like this. And if I'm wrong, okay, fine, I'm wrong. But I just don't see him making a slip up like this where they'd be in a situation where they'd go out and make claims in court. And then those claims tend to be unearthed by the prosecution as well. They lied before this court, and they lied about this, and they lied about that. That to me doesn't seem like an Alan Jackson mistake. It seems like the prosecution is fishing for anything that they can muster to try to, prohibit the defense from having a smooth momentum.
Yeah, and that's why I go back and I look at, we were talking about this at lunch today. I look at everything like, what has Hank Brennan done since he's taken on this case? Literally attacked everything attacked Dr. Russell, tried to get that thrown out, tried to get Richard Green thrown out, tried to get the 227 Google search thrown out. We now he's hard pressing against ARCA. All the federal information he's trying to get thrown out. So to me, it's a smoke and mirrors tactic. It's smoke and mirrors that they're doing. And, you know, they're trying to keep out all the key things that are working in Karen Reed's, in what's the word I'm looking for? Working in her favor, essentially, in this case.
Right.
You know, it's not their job. You know, it's not the defense's job to prove anything. The Commonwealth needs to bring it, and they're losing hard. And I think when I saw Hank Brennan at that podium and he's shuffling papers, and I'm going, he's thinking in his mind, I should have never took this case. I should have never took this case, because he's well over his head. And you knew Lally was too. Yeah. Lally was way over his head. And I think Hank now is starting to feel it, and as well. It's over his head. And I think he wants out. Yeah. I think he wants out, because that whole shit with the drum. I mean, can you imagine? We're gonna possibly go to trial here and have to sit for weeks of him pounding a podium and the theatrical performance that he's gonna have. I'm gonna feel like I'm watching a few good men, you know, with the tight shots on the camera. Right. That's what I feel like that he's looking to do now, and try to. You know, he's going to do that shit in front of the jury to try to play into it. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of theatrics. That's their game. And again, I think this is a prosecution. Yeah, I think this is a prosecution that's very desperate. They're very, very much. They're trying to. There's a lot of pressure on their end. You know, obviously that's because it's coming from above somewhere. And I would suggest maybe the DA's office is probably where you might find all this coming from. But there's a lot of people who need to cover things up and cover their tracks and make sure that they do not go down. And they're all in on that, because they know that there's a lot to lose if they ever get found out for ever conspiring to cover up the murder of a Boston police officer and frame his girlfriend for a murder that she did not commit, then lying about that in the court and having all these other people brought up on the witness stand that are lying about that, because that's exactly what they have done. And they have a lot of answering to do to a lot of people if they ever get brought down by the federal government. That much is for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny because. And let's get to this really quick. I'm going to just pull this up. Let's see. Meatball Morrissey's. Oh, geez. This is a Sketty Stain. I love that. I haven't seen you. They come up with the best names.
Yeah.
$10 says, if it bleeds, it leads. This was the first thing I learned getting my bachelor's in criminal justice. Also, the grifter insult is so funny. They think they're going to make donators salty. It makes us indigent and stronger. Indignant and stronger. Thank you. My vocabulary is terrible.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Maz. He's a lot smarter than me, believe me.
That's all right. Yeah.
Kylie, thank you so much for the 10. She said, I'd love to see Kinsey on how Hanky mentioned him during Russell's voir dire. To see the option after trial 1. He did a show with a 13 juror early on. Great show as always. Thank you to the both, and thank you so much for your donation. You know what I thought was very interesting, Maz, listening to the last hearing, heard a lot about geofencing data.
Sure.
So that's telling me they're starting to narrow down where everybody was during this during that night. Sure. And I think that's going to come back and start nailing a lot of people too, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have. Well, Richard Green could probably testify to that. No, he's more of an extractionist, but I wonder if they'll bring in an expert on the geofencing data.
Yeah, they should. Microdots has talked quite a bit about that. Olivia on X and YouTube has talked quite a bit about that as well. And it seems like this is the only case that's ever taken place in the history of the United States, at least in the 21st century, where technology like Cellbrite data and Apple Health data and geofencing doesn't seem to really be applicable. But then you look at other cases, and I think you talked about one of those cases earlier.
Alec Murdaugh.
Yeah. It seems to be applicable and accurate in that particular case. But when it comes time for Karen Reed's case, well, the geofence data could be left into question. The Apple Health data, well, you know, there's no proof that he actually went in that house, even though the Apple Health data clearly shows he went towards the house, up 3 flights of stairs. And there's also Cellbrite data shows Google searches took place at very, very specific periods. It's this is the only case I've ever seen where basically the data that's right in your face and right in front of you, that's verifiable, is being questioned by the prosecution. And even people that are on Court TV and our good friend Julie Grant has a lot to say about us Karen Reed supporters a lot. On and on she goes, and on they go all the time, trying to make it seem like we're so bad, we're such bad people, and ultimately we're wrong about everything we say, and that the defense is wrong about all this. But again, the defense is not manufacturing data. They are researching data. They are taking that data and they're saying, well, this is what the data shows. This is what the geofence data shows. This is what everything else shows. And then they put that out there, and time after time, it's like, well, we'll take it under advisement. Well, that could be debated. We're not sure if your sources are accurate on this. And it's like, well, we literally have people that are very, very qualified to speak. And I think that the defense going into the next trial will probably have even more experts. Like you said, they've probably done a lot more vetting of people that would be potentially witnesses for them to come on the stand and testify to this and say, what is your expertise in geofence data? Can you explain this? Can you talk about how phones can triangulate or whatever? And really break that down. And I think that the defense is really going to strive to, as we saw with Ronnie the juror on Turtle Boy recently, try to present all this in a way that is very essential to presenting it to the jury in a more fundamental way this time. Not that they didn't do that properly the first time, but they might break it down a lot more this particular time, really make it a little bit more basic at an elementary level this time, because maybe sometimes there's jurors that overthink things or maybe don't fully grasp what's going on. And I think that was a big concern in the first trial. But the defense has a great sample size going back to the first trial to use from and say, okay, what hit, what did not? What can we do better? Because it's like anything. It's like sports, like anything. You can always do better. You can always, no matter how great you do, like the Patriots. How many Super Bowls did they win? Where the Rams almost came back, the Panthers almost came back. They almost lost the Seahawks and the Falcons, but they won.
Yeah.
You don't have to win great. You don't have to win perfectly, but you got to win. And they, in my opinion, they did win the first trial, except for a second count that was a little bit debated, which is fair. But I was hoping that going into the second trial, that'd be the only count, which is the real problem I have. That this is all back on board for another trial, which is the big issue I have.
Yeah, they're going to do everything in their power to keep pushing this through.
Course.
I mean, there's no doubt about that. I just think it's strange that we sit here and like even, just even saying like the Julie Grants of the world and, these shows. And I think, we have our show, they have their show. I look at Vinnie Politan. I think he's kind of come a little bit more Karen Reed than, he's kind of in the middle. I think he actually leaned probably more Commonwealth at first, but he's come a long way. And I know when we talk Court TV, people go, but I'm just putting this into perspective. That, and my bigger point in all of this is, you look at all of the egregious things that have happened with all those people at 34 Fairview that night, and you go, really? You're gonna side with them? Like, to me, and like, the key thing, I think one of the key things for me, and of course, I mean, it's the biggest thing in all of this is the 227 Google search. Like, why would you do that if you had nothing to do with what was going on? And then now we're hearing things like, oh, well, when Brian Higgins went back to Canton PD, oh, there's a video of him on the phone at 1:33 in the morning.
Yes.
Well, who the fuck are you calling?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to? Like, why would you be talking to someone at 1:33 in the morning, supposedly out there moving cars around because of the snow? I mean, these people are just literally lying through their teeth. And then you get them on the stand where they have to face an attorney that's going to ask direct questions to them, and none of them can remember anything. They got to go back and read their transcript again, or can you show me? Or it's wild. It's absolutely wild. The people that I come in contact with, and they're like, they call me crazy. You're crazy for believing her. Are you serious? Have you seen all the mounting evidence against everybody at 34 Fairview? You have Brian Albert, that is a retired cop that didn't even come out once during that whole thing. There's a dead and dying fucking cop on your front lawn, and you're not going to come out once and go, what's going on? That doesn't make any sense to me. And it just tells me that they got something that they're hiding, something that they're definitely hiding.
You look at all the common denominators that particular night, and Karen wasn't a common denominator at all. She was anything but that. And same thing with John O'Keefe, that all the people that were inside of the house were all connected to each other one way or in some way, shape, or form. Ultimately, they all knew each other. They were affiliated with each other some way. And obviously, it wasn't common that John would be over there. It was also Karen that never even went over there other than to drop him off. And it would just make sense from a cover-up standpoint if you just pinned it on the girl, quote unquote, to borrow a phrase from someone out there, because that's really what's happened here. And it's to me, it makes more sense that, people say, well, what is your, Karen did it. End of discussion. She's been accused. She's done it. It's like another movie reference. Beverly Hills Cop 2. Frame Kane, kill Kane. Kane's the alphabet killer. Case closed. That's that's exactly what I think of this. You frame Karen, kill John. Karen killed John. Case closed.
Yep.
And that's really what they've tried to do here, is basically say, let's make it easy. Let's make it simple. And I think a lot of times, and you see this in a lot of police investigations, a lot of times police officers, I'm not really talking about the Canton Police Department, I'm talking in general here. A lot of times detectives, cops, all that, they want to go for the simplest solution first.
The easiest way.
Correct. Because the mind desires to solve everything as quickly as possible.
Proctor in 16 hours already was going to nail Karen and say, oh, she did this in 16 hours into his investigation.
Right.
Without even having any shred of talking to well, we know the people that he talked to.
Yes.
But I'm saying canvassing the neighborhood, knocking on a neighbor's door.
Right.
But no one was going to come out and help anyway.
No.
But in 16 hours, he already had it pinned.
Sure.
It's Karen fucking Reed that did this.
Right.
And here we go.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. A lot of times they're always going to look for the simplest, most plausible thing. Okay, she dropped them off. She hit him with the vehicle. And before you look at all the details of that, sometimes to the mind, that actually sounds like the most obvious thing. Even when the news reported it initially, she ran over her boyfriend. Because it sounds like to me, or most people, that's the simplest thing that could have possibly happened. That's before you look at all the details. That's before you look at all the evidence. And you have people in the media that are appearing on national television, and then they're saying Karen did this, including someone that's a judge, a former judge. And I'm not going to get political about political affiliation. I don't care if people watch Fox News, CNN. I don't care what the political affiliations are. But that particular individual went on national television and made all these claims about Karen that were baseless and were not properly reviewed and vetted before she went on television and said that. But it's easy to look at everything in plain text and say, okay, she got really angry with her boyfriend. She ran him over. But what is the context to that? How was he killed? What were his wounds like? Okay, you think it happened to the vehicle. What was the vehicle damage like? But then you don't take into account Cellbrite data showing Google searches. You don't take into effect Apple Health data. You don't take into effect that the wounds on his arms look very reminiscent of dog bites or dog scratches and or both. These are all the things that you look at. How does taillight that apparently shattered all over the place
collapse sprinkled through the crime scene for weeks?
Right. Collapses and lands on the property, but does not land on the street where the vehicle and the incident would have allegedly taken place. And when you look at these details and you start to bring up stuff, like you said moments ago, people call me, people call you crazy. People call me crazy too. But when you think about everything that we're talking about here, it's all based on actual data. It's all based on actual things. You have people that are ARCA experts that are very qualified, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler. These are very intelligent guys. They know what they're talking about, and they're getting up on the witness stand, and they're telling you exactly what their research leads them to believe. You have Dr. Marie Russell, who's an animal wound expert, that gets up there and tells you exactly what that leads her to believe, and tells you that there's more probable than not that these were dog wounds. And then that's why I always say to people, if you're going to say that what we're saying is outrageous or crazy, well, in what way is it really far-fetched? Why is there additionally no camera footage anywhere in that neighborhood that particular night that in a moment could put Karen Reed behind bars? And I like I said, before you go, if they want to produce the footage from across the street or a neighboring house that shows Karen Reed running over John O'Keefe and killing John in the exact way that the Commonwealth and all of them are saying that she did, they're free to go ahead and produce that footage and go ahead and play it in court. And we'll go ahead and say, okay, we were wrong the whole time. And we've all been willing to do that for quite a long time. But it's been over 3 years now, Brian. It's February 2025. This incident happened in January 2022, and no footage has been produced. And an entire trial went by, and they produced Sallyport footage for us. They produced other footage for us, but no footage of what happened at 34 Fairview Road that night, which is basically where the incident took place. And as the evidence, that would be very damning to Karen that she would not be able to refute. And if that evidence existed, they'd be able to put her in jail very easily and wouldn't need to go through all this hoopla in order to do it. But the fact that none of that footage is even existing, and it all mysteriously vanishes, and that there's library footage not anywhere to be found, and that even when you go to Sallyport and is missing 45 minutes of footage, and all this footage is missing, it really leads me to believe that Karen Reed probably didn't do any of this.
Yeah, it's funny. And and now the video is the Sally Port video is so screwed up. It's just Mark's just had enough.
Oh,
it's just too much.
Just the fact that anybody thinks that this wasn't a conspiracy and a cover up, you just.
I mean, this shit does happen. Like that's the thing is, I try to get through. Listen, it happens. Okay, it does happen. Not every case is a conspiracy and a cover up, but these things do happen.
Sure.
And just if you're a puzzle solver and you put all these pieces together, you can clearly see what's going on.
Right.
Before we go on, I just want to read some of these super chats. And so we have Peter, thank you so much. Says, do you think Bev will have the balls to grant the Commonwealth's motion to impound the motion to dismiss? I'll let Mazza take a stab at this one.
All right, let's see.
He says, do you think Bev will have the balls to grant the Commonwealth's motion to impound the motion to dismiss?
Probably not. You know, she's going to act against the defense in any way, shape, or form. You know, anytime they're trying to do anything, it's just they don't want to deal with it. The defense is going to make a strong argument once again. This is why this should go on. She's not going to, you know, let's just hope she grants Bettero at this particular point. But yeah, I don't know if she's going to have the balls to do that.
Yeah.
To answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope so, but we'll see.
I think that there's the motion is going to come through and she's going to do the old, I'm going to lick the finger. Yeah. No, we're going to go to trial.
Yeah.
I mean, we heard her in what, 3 hearings ago? Like we have a schedule to keep and we need to get this trial going.
Right.
And it's going to happen on April 1st. She's already made her mind up.
Yeah.
She's already made her mind up, people. Lori, thank you so much for $5. Says Ronnie the juror said, quote, they did not believe that John went into the house at 34 Fairview.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, and he cited too that all the evidence needs to be presented in terms of that. It should be presented before the jury, where basically it's like, this is why he didn't go there. Now, Ronnie was able to clarify exactly that based on the evidence. John did not go in that. John went in that house, I should say. But the jury seemed pretty convinced because they still were 12-0 on 2 of those counts. So I think they can finesse it for the jury better next time. But I think that to a degree it was sufficiently addressed, but it could be done a little bit more.
You know what was weird to me, and I may be, I don't know, because we do so much and we talk about so much and there's so many things we have to watch.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember Ronnie saying something to the fact of, well, you know, for the people that voted not guilty, we believe that she didn't hit him, but we don't know how he got hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the defense has presented all this stuff in front of you. So you believe that he got hit, but like he got hurt and injured, and you said you don't believe that Karen hit him, then why wouldn't you had an opportunity on Turtle Boy's show? And believe me, I have to go back and watch the 3 hours because I don't know if he did, but I would have not liked to know, like, okay, here's your time to explain it. You've had the time to think about it. Why don't you let us know how you're feeling now? And the chat's probably going to correct me if he did.
Yeah.
If he did say something about it, but that always kind of was strange to me that he said that.
Yeah, because I think that it's easy to, like you said, the evidence, the vehicle and the body didn't match up was one of the things he said a couple of times over. But I don't think that there's any way to really, beyond the dog wounds, really like I was go back to the gash in the back of the head. That's very debatable how that happened. Maybe you hit it on a bench, or maybe you hit it crashing into some kind of a beam or something. I don't know. But maybe he took a shot to the back of the head with a pipe. I don't know. But something happened into his head. So I would say, in fairness to the jury, I would say if they were to say we could not conclusively determine what had happened to John, because the thing is, at the end of the day, they're not there as a jury to conclusively determine what had happened to John. They're there to conclusively determine that Karen Reed did not do this because she's the one on trial. So therefore, if the jury was able to just say, well, we can't look at this evidence and declare that Karen Reed did it, that's all it really needs to be done, which is a great thing. I mean, it's not really up to them.
It's true.
It's like Alan Jackson said, it's not for us to know.
But the thing that they did wrong is that they started to come up with their own theories, not based on the evidence.
Correct.
And you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
You're
you
right
don't
about
do
that.
that. Like,
You're right about that.
we can do that.
Right.
I'm not sitting on the jury, so anybody around the water cooler can do that.
Yeah.
But when you have facts and evidence that are in front of you, you're supposed to take all of those facts and you listen to the trial that's happened in front of you, and then you make your determination based off that evidence.
Yeah.
You don't just start coming up with your own theories because you went, oh, you know, at one point we thought, well, maybe he slipped back and did it himself. Like, you're not like, that's not why you're here. You need to take the facts and the evidence in front of you.
Right.
So
that's exactly it. And like I said, they're there for reasonable doubt. And that was one thing I mentioned a lot when I reviewed that interview the day after. You know, I saw it on a lot of other shows, is the word reasonable doubt keeps coming up over and over. And I kept saying that on my own show, regardless of however they saw, reasonable doubt existed. Now, to the jury's credit, 2 of the 3 counts, they did go 12 on, not guilty. It's the second count where they did get caught up. And I thought that that's where it was a little bit. This is why I was hoping for charges, the first and third counts, to be dismissed, because I wanted the defense to be able to go into a second trial only on count 2 and be able to hone right in on her BAC level, her travel. Like I always say, she drove from point A to point B without incident, point B to point C without incident that particular night. You know, there was no reckless driving reported. There was no crashing into vehicles. There was none of that.
Right.
She was able to successfully. So those are things I think that I'd like them to hone on. The problem with going into a second trial with all the counts on board is they got to go back through all these witnesses again, try to get not guilty on 1, get not guilty on 3, which is why this, you know, habeas corpus, which is writ of habeas corpus, which is out there right now, is such a big deal. And this judge really can't continue on with the trial as badly as she wants to until that's been resolved.
Yeah.
Aussie Insider went over that recently in a couple of videos and talked about the importance of that. That judge would basically be in violation to some degree if she did that. She can't supersede from basically being essentially, I'd say, a county judge. She can't supersede the federal government if a writ of habeas corpus has basically been submitted, which is why it's smart. I had someone debate me on that, and they're free to have their difference of opinion. They were a Karen Reed supporter as well. But I think that whether or not there's a small chance or a slim chance of that going through successfully, you're better off taking that chance anytime you do have an opportunity to do so.
I'm going to give you a movie reference.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. About time.
What does it say? Jim Carrey, cable guy, says, I'm going to file a motion of habeas corpus. I'll put the system on trial. I love that movie. It's such a great movie. Let me get to this. Peter says, you misunderstood my question. Commonwealth is asking for the defendant's motion to dismiss to be hidden from the public. Do you think that Bev will grant it? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she did hide it from the public. I don't know. I mean, everything is so public and out there in this case. I think there would be outrage if she did that.
It would be outrage if she hid this from the public. That's for sure. Just make sure you leave the question up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to reread the questions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
No problem.
But yeah,
I don't think she'd.
Of course, I'd say this. Of course, let's talk about the CW for a second. Of course, the CW would want anything to not be as public as possible, because the defense is putting things out there that they never wanted Cellbrite data to be discussed or Apple Health data to be discussed, because this is their nightmare. The defense has actual evidence that can be presented, and videos, and even taking videos that the Commonwealth's presented, such as Sallyport footage, and say, hey, you know what? That footage was inverted, and those times that you're seeing there, those are all wrong too. But do I think Bev will grant this? I don't know. I don't know honestly, I don't know what this judge is thinking, but I will say this to Peter's question. The judge tends to favor the prosecution more than the defense. So I'll say
it's clear now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so clear now.
Yeah. She's usually a 75-25% grantor in favor of the prosecution. Like I said earlier, I just want Better to be admitted here as a lawyer, because this is
I think to Bettero's, I would say to Bettero's credit, but you know what I mean. I think
Nan Gallagher just said here she won't grant it.
She won't grant it.
Nan Gallagher just said she won't grant it.
Good to know.
Yeah,
in her opinion,
right?
And I trust her opinion.
Yeah,
100%. Arctic Fox, do you think Paul O'Keefe is being paid to keep his mouth shut? About what? We need a little bit more context. Keep his mouth shut about what?
I'm going to pass on talking about him.
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk about him on any program. I'm just going to pass on that comment.
Yeah,
it's not anything against you, Arctic Fox. I just there's certain individuals I try not to talk about. So I'm going to pass on that discussing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I would say I'll give a generalized answer though, without naming names. I don't know what people out there are being paid what by who, or if anybody's being paid anything by who to say anything or not say anything. I'll generalize my answer, but I don't know. I don't know what people got going on behind the scenes. No matter if they're a family member of either side or a lawyer or any witness. I don't know. I wouldn't know. But it's a theoretical question though, which is a good question.
All I can say for myself is they always say that we get these big, all the creators, that was the big thing on X. We're all getting these paychecks and the defense is paying us and all. Well, if they are, I haven't seen one.
Well, I will say this. If the defense is out there paying people, okay, if they're paying Turtle Boy and they're paying Glare and they're paying Nurse Chem and they're paying you and they're paying all these
you
other
haven't
people,
got nothing.
What do you mean I haven't been getting paid too? I'll tell you right now. I would be like, you mean to tell me everyone's getting paid? They're paying Olivia they're paying everybody.
Yeah,
and
that
I'm
was
not
the big thing
paid?
too. Olivia's
I'm like the
getting
kid in that
paid.
movie with Jason Sudeikis and Jennifer Aniston. You guys got paid? What is Tommy CPU getting paid to operate that
Tommy, you
camera
better
over
tell
there?
us.
Yeah.
We need to know what you get paid, Tommy.
Exactly.
Look at this, New Zealand checking in. This is badass. We're gonna round it up to a $5 US and says, I want Bettero to write the defense closing, explain and hammer home the jury about what reasonable doubt is and free Karen Reed. That's awesome.
That is a great. Very, very huge. That's from New Zealand. Richard, I hope you're doing well down in New Zealand. That is a huge comment because I want to just gloss past the part about Mark Bettero. I want to just talk about reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Reasonable doubt is because Ronnie alone, if he's the only juror that ever goes on Turtle Boy or we ever hear from, the thing that kept, like we talked about moments ago on this show, was the word reasonable doubt, and that jury did not seem to understand what reasonable doubt was and what that meant and why, because it's like anything. Well, I would say this. If you're in that jury deliberation room and you guys are going back and forth, 8-4, 6-6, 6-6, 8-4, 10-2, whatever.
They started, I'm sorry to cut you off. It started, I think it was 6-6.
Yep.
Did it start 6-6?
Yep.
And then they started working their way back. They worked for guilty.
Right. Yeah. Right. I would say this is that we know that jury did not understand what reasonable doubt meant. And I will argue this. If that jury kept going back to being sent back, they were read, I forgot what it was called again, the whatever it was called there, Tui Rodriguez. When they were read that, at some point a juror in that room had to stand up and say, hey, look, let's just look at this in sense for a moment, right? We're 12-0 on 1, we're 12-0 on 3, we're 6-6, 8-4, whatever, on count 2. At some point, a juror in that room that hopefully had a level of intelligence that was sufficient to think this through, and I think that they're all probably intelligent to a degree. I'm not here to say whether they're smart, whether they're not, but I'm here to say this. You think someone would say, hey, look, if we're, as 12 jurors, not able to reach a conclusion on this, isn't that of itself reasonable doubt? Now, if that jury is not of the understanding to understand that or know this or have the word reasonable doubt in their minds enough, they're not going to come to that conclusion. So no matter how smart they are, if it's not pounded in their head enough, they're not going to know. Now, the defense, to their credit, would have no idea of knowing if this jury knew enough about reasonable doubt. Now, going back to the super chat there, this is why what we just saw as that super chat is so important to have brought up in that final, in court at the end of the trial, in closing arguments, is because this is something that this next jury needs to know. You have to ask yourself, if you can't declare Karen Reed guilty or not guilty, isn't that reasonable doubt? What is reasonable doubt? And that's what that's basically going to be as far as I'm concerned, the theme of the next trial for the defense is reasonable doubt. That's going to be the key word that they're going to have to say over and over and over again. Not only did Karen not do this,
bring it into the opening,
right, and to any point made by the prosecution, there's still reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I would use that word over and over in the defense's opening. So reasonable doubt, is a legal standard that requires the prosecution to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case. It's a doubt based on reason and common sense rather than emotion and speculation.
Right.
And you know what that jury did?
Right.
They deliberated on emotion and speculation.
Right.
Because even Ronnie said it. We speculated on how John, we were thinking that John could have caused his own injuries.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to base it off the evidence in front of you.
Right.
So it was probably a lot of speculation, emotion. And we heard that things got tense in that room as well, too.
Yeah. Oh, they did. They got definitely tense. And I think that's, like I said, is that the lack of jury's understanding of what reasonable doubt is. They not understand what that means and why. And that's a huge problem because that's not, some people might say, well, it's the defense's fault. It's really not. It just means that maybe the defense now realizes that this, maybe what it is too, is that, this case is not very common. It's an uncommon situation with an uncommon set of circumstances that really is not by any means normal. You've listened to Nan Gallagher and Mark Betterow talk about this on various shows, including your own, over the years or over the months. It's very clear this is not a very common case. And I just think that now that the defense has a sample size, they can just really, really hone in on that next time around and say, okay, we see what happened with this last jury. Let's kind of really rain down on this point next time around and say, hey, all right, reasonable doubt. Yeah, and I think they did that to a degree in the first trial. I think they did. I still argue the defense did everything they could have. I just think that you had a jury that really got deadlocked. And it doesn't help that jury was essentially tampered with either. As we saw, someone was assigned to oversee that jury and happened to remove 3 jurors. This was talked about by Alan Jackson in his Boston 25 interview recently, where it turned out that 3 jurors that were very clear pro-Karen Reed jurors were suddenly,
funny how that happened.
Yeah, magically had the sack go over them and they were dragged out the back door and thrown in the truck and taken to no man's land. But that's basically what happened here. They knew, like Alan Jackson said, when you're sitting there I was in court for 1 day. I sat in that trial room for 1 day. You were there at least 1 day.
Yep.
You get a feel for when you're in there all day and you see the jury. I still remembered Ronnie's face when I saw him on trial. I'm like, oh, I remember him.
Yep. I knew right away.
I hadn't seen the guy since June.
Yep.
It's February. I see him, 8 months later,
yeah.
8 months later. And I'm like, oh, I remember him.
Yep.
I remember his face.
Yep.
And that's only being in the room with the guy one time. You want to know, I had a pretty favorable thought of him. I didn't think that he looked like a bad guy at all. He was obviously someone that seemed to rule favorably for Karen, at least on 2 of the counts. And he got a little bit whatever on the second count. But, you look at these people and you're like, well, I think I trust them to rule on this. I felt comfortable with them. I did not think that this thing was going to get as deadlocked as it was. But then, but what happened there? There's jury tampering. What happens is you get rid of the jurors that seem to be, oh man, Karen's innocent. We're going to make sure so not only is it tough enough for Karen to fight for her own freedom against the Canton police,
people away.
the state police, the Norfolk County, then she's going to go in the courtroom. Now she's going to battle a judge that is immensely biased, is incredibly rude to Karen and her own defense team. And then not only that, but now when it comes time to jury deliberation,
we'll start plucking people out of the room.
Now we're going to start plucking people out of the room. We're going to start poaching them and getting them right out of
there. Can't make it up.
You can't make it up.
It's like a movie.
Yeah.
We got a couple more super chats that came through. Lori Joyce, $5, says, in addition to hammering home the jury, what reasonable doubt is, they need to also instruct the jury. Oh,
there you go.
There we go. They need to also instruct the jury. Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable. That's really good.
Correct.
Yeah. I like that. I really, really do like that. Let's go here. We had Stelly Arts. Thank you so much for the $10. And we had a $50 super chat come through from Nurse Kimberly from Kansas.
Nice.
$49.90. It said, have never seen a cover up in my life. The Karen Reed case, Judge Bev is so biased and clearly does not like the defense team. I hope the feds get involved and put the people involved with Officer John O'Keefe's death behind bars. Free Karen Reed and justice for John O'Keefe. You couldn't have said it better. We all believe the same thing there. And thank you so much. And please pass the pepper. $5 says, you two never disappoint us by blessing us with intelligent, critical thinking, respect, and conversation. Thank you. free Karen Reed. I'll get Mark's comment on that one.
Please pass the pepper is a very nice woman. Got to meet her at the tavern a month ago, roughly. Very nice woman. Longtime follower of both our programs, avid Karen Reed supporter. So that's just thank you for that comment. We really appreciate it.
You know, we try to, I know, especially my show, you know, I try to prepare as best as I can, get ready for my guests. I always have questions. You know, I look at my notes. I try to feel the vibe of the chat. I know Mark and I, you know, we talked about this over lunch today. You know, Mark's a preparer. He's like, you know, the other days, like I was reviewing some stuff and it was like 3 hours and I had to write these notes down. And, you know, we're preparers. We want to present this, you know, to all of you. So, you know, it's a little bit easier to walk through this stuff. And believe me, we don't get it 100% right either. I'm not a lawyer or, you know, someone that works in a court or a police officer, but, you know, I appreciate all of those informations. Those lawyers and police officers are all come to our channels and helped us out and sort through this stuff because it is difficult. I mean, I don't know 100% of the law. That's why I just call out in the chat and say, are there any lawyers in, you know, like, what is it? Is there a doctor in the house?
A marine
is there
biologist.
A doctor in the house?
Is anyone a marine Seinfeld? Is anybody a marine biologist?
But, you know, we try to do, like I said, we try to do the best we can and try to educate, you know, and I've learned, dude, I've learned so much from this.
I know.
I've learned so much from this. It's crazy.
I know so many terms I learned over the past year or two, and I just never expected to learn all this stuff. And like I said, it's tough. I mean, when I was on a lot of shows with Mark Betterow, it's, you know, you know, Mike's the host, and you got Mark Betterow and me, and I'm, you know, he's talking legal jargon. I'm kind of sitting there like, all right, this is gonna, and then people are like, Mazza doesn't have the expertise that Betterow does. Well, in fairness, no, I don't. And I don't claim to, you know, but you know, like I said, I always kind of just, I always feel like, you know, the key is to know your place and know your role, right? So my place and my role is to just really talk about what I know and really say what I think and say what I feel. And that's the most that I can do. And never really try to make comments that are bigger than what I really know or use terms that I don't know what they mean.
Sure.
You know, really kind of keeping yourself in a very much a balanced box of who you are and what you have to say. And just really, you know, bring yourself to the table and your opinion to the table and your base of knowledge to yourself. And even when I do my shows, it's always like, I always focus on talking about what I know.
Yeah.
And if I don't know something, I'm not afraid to admit, well, I'm undereducated on, like, I've had super chats. I'm like, I'm kind of a little undereducated on that subject. I don't know too much about that. You know, maybe I'll try to answer that another time. I'm not afraid to say that because, again, I don't think you should ever, because sometimes you might feel the pressure as a show host to come on and be like, I know everything. And then all of a sudden you say something that's not accurate or is wrong. And now you're basically not. So that's a big thing. You have to always focus on that too, is just talking about what I know, saying what I feel, how I react. And that's the best you can hope to do. And I think that's so great to have someone like Mark Betterow, Nan Gallagher, the lawyer, you know, brother counsel, Todd McGee,
you know, all
other
those
people
experts
that have either LV cops, they either have police expertise or they have
law enforcement background, right?
Or law backgrounds, because these folks can help verify things. And like I said, all of us have had, a lot of us have had Nan Gallagher as a guest on our show recently. And how many times were we on our show and we'd make a point and Nan or even Mark Betterow in the past would say, that's a great point. And it's great, but sometimes you can't really, like myself, I can maybe say something, how I see something as an accuracy or out of context, as I see it happen in the courtroom. And maybe I can't put that in a legal term. Maybe someone like Mark or Nan, when they're on the show, will suddenly go, like, there's a lot of times I'd be on the Young Jerks and I'd make a point and Mark would go, and to that point, and then all of a sudden he just goes off with legal terms. It makes you feel good. It is. It's good because it shows that even though you don't necessarily have the legal expertise, you know, at the end of the day, minds are still minds and eyes are still eyes, and most of us can see it. It's just a matter of someone like them having that legal expertise to apply that in a legal sense and then bring it back to how it applies to the Karen Reed case and really break down as to why, not only why is this judge or whomever inappropriate or incorrect, but they can then label it in a legal context and also verify to you based on their own legal experience, like the lawyer, you know, why these things are uncommon. I've asked those questions of Mark. I've asked those questions of Nan when I've either been on shows with them or had them on my show. Is this very common to see this kind of thing? And they both kind of really said it's not that common at all.
Not at all.
Which is a very frightening statement to hear, but it's not, I'm not shocked by those answers.
It's scary. It's scary
Yeah.
stuff what's going on here in Norfolk County.
Right.
You know, and that's the way, like, I just kind of look at myself as like, I'm just a regular, I'm like a water cooler guy. Like I just love conversation, puzzle solving, expanding your mind with deeper conversations. That's why I like to do this stuff. You know, I like to sit down and have natural organic conversations face to face with people. I think you get a different reaction from people.
Yeah.
And you know, not like the virtual stuff is great too, but I think when you have someone in that comes and sits down, you see face to face, you can see the facial expressions and kind of feel the vibe in the room.
Yeah,
off
Melanie Little as well. I forgot to mention
yes.
Melanie Little. Shout
Emily
out to
D.
her.
Baker.
Emily D. Baker. Yeah. Great people right there.
Yes.
Thanks for touching me up, folks. I appreciate it. A lot of names out there.
Common sense should prevail with $5 says, how does a juror speak out during deliberations if the foreman won't allow questions of the law to be asked by the judge? I'm going to pass on that one. You know, how does a juror speak out during deliberations if the foreman won't allow questions? I don't know. I mean, do you go to the judge?
Yeah, I couldn't provide a formal argument to that, but I would say my concern would be this. Would the jury have a lack of confidence, a lack of knowledge and understanding how much power the foreman does or does not have? And are they able to supersede that foreman? Now, whether or not that's true, because I don't know the answer to that. And someone else would. But let's say
we have a lawyer in the room.
The most important part here is do those jurors know if they can supersede the foreman by going over his head? And if they do not, are they then going to essentially confide to whatever he says does and does not go? And I think that's the most important part here. But we'll see if there's
didn't they have some controversy in the movie 12 Angry Men and they kept going I'm going to go to
there's your answer there. Pass a note to the judge, though not a non-corrupt supervising officer through a non-corrupt supervising officer.
It's so funny that Nan said that.
Yeah.
I was just going down that lane. I said in 12 Angry Men, there was some deliberate, if I remember the movie, and I'm talking about the most updated. I'm talking about, thank you. I'm talking about the most updated. Thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome.
If people don't understand what's going on with the camera switch, I'm doing I'm the producer today too.
Give me an extra controller and I can sit there and finesse the thing too.
like a joystick or something.
Yeah.
But I think I remember in that movie, that's essentially what someone was going to do. Like, we'll just get to the bailiff or the officer outside the door and they were going to pass a note. Anyway,
and I think to that another point I made that if the jury does not understand that they can do that, that may have been the problem here. Is that Ronnie and all them may have not have understood that the foreman does not have absolute power over the entire jury. They're the foreman, which is essentially maybe the juror that's the foremost in the front of them all. But you know, if they don't,
they might feel like they didn't have the power to say above the foreman.
Supersede.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people get nervous and scared,
correct.
Especially if they're very passive type of people,
correct.
And they're not, forefront or alpha in that situation. They might say, I don't really want to get that aggressive. So, all right, let's do this one really quick, and then we'll get a final thought and wrap up today. And I just want to say thank you to everybody so far that has been here today. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Please go find MazzaMedia on YouTube and X. It's MazzaMedia. Whoa, I did that pretty good.
Good job.
You can find him on YouTube and find him on X. And then also, before we go, we're going to total up all the donations. We'll get a grand total. 25% of that will make a donation to Karen Reed's Defense Fund. And what I do to prove that is I just take a screenshot. I'll post it up on my Facebook page, LTL Media, or on my YouTube community page. And then you can also go to the website and it will say LTL Media Chat Raiser and it will have the date and the donation total. Real quick, we'll do this one and then we'll get a final thought from Mazza. Bernie Heaven is a £5. £5 will make that $5 US. So they follow Karen Reed's case from Manchester, UK. Any thoughts on professional jurors? Thank you for keeping us all informed. Transparency matters. I mean, the possibility could be there. I don't think so. I think Ronnie would have probably cracked and said, hey, there's some shit going on. He seemed like the type of guy that maybe would have came forward. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, and I think this time around, I would like to see less doctors and nurses and engineers. I think when you get a bunch of people like that in a room, that's when it causes a lot of this. I think they need more common everyday people on that jury, an iron worker or a a school teacher or whatever it may be, more of those blue collar jobs than what I think we are learning about this jury. And because I think sometimes those personalities, when they get in a room, tend to try to oversee each other.
Yeah.
I know, Maz, your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of direction they go in with the jury. It's going to be a lot more difficult to establish a jury this time, as this case was a lot bigger during trial than it was during jury deliberation last time around. So it's going to be interesting to see what the pool is like of jurors to pull from that have not heard of this case before, because this case became a lot bigger this time around. So we'll see how that goes. The writ of habeas corpus, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. Time it out for some reason. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. I think that's really huge right now. I'm interested in seeing how this judge maneuvers around that, or attempts to or not to maneuver around that. I should say that Tuesday's going to be big, but I think I'm hopeful for a positive outcome. I think the defense is going to come prepared, backing up statements and really looking into what they said before and how they can present themselves in a way that shows, guess what? Look, we did nothing that's going to be able to be used against us or get Alan Jackson thrown out. But I'll say this: if I was on the prosecution side and the evidence was on the defense's side, of course I'd try to get rid of Karen Reed's attorneys, because those are the plays that desperate people have to do. And Karen said this on our Boston 25 interview. Are you threatened by? Does it matter to you who the prosecutor is? And Karen said wholeheartedly and boldly, it doesn't matter who the prosecutor is. We're not really concerned. You can send everybody in the Easter Bunny, and it doesn't really matter. Same thing here.
Yeah.
Why are they so worried about Alan Jackson? Why are they worried about David Inetti? To that point, why are they worried about Mark Betterow? They're worried about a lot of these attorneys right now. They seem to be very, very worried about defense attorneys for some reason, because they want to try to weaken Karen's defense team, because they know that they have an army. They have the dream team with Eliza Little and Robert Alessi, and they're very threatened by that right now. And that's definitely absolutely what this is all about. And like I said, Karen's not afraid of the prosecutors. It doesn't matter who they provide or who they send or who represents the Commonwealth. It doesn't matter, because the evidence is still the same. No matter who the defense is, no matter what, it doesn't matter, because the evidence is still the evidence. And the evidence has always been on Karen Reed's side and her defense team's side, and always will be. It doesn't matter if there's 2 trials or 1,000,000 trials. It doesn't matter. The evidence is on Karen's side.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. I love the passion, Maz. It's always there.
Yeah.
And always have a great way of explaining things. The evidence is there. The evidence is there. All right, let's do this. I just want to show one thing to the audience real quick, if you haven't seen. And I thought this was a great quote from Nick Rocco on the morning show. So Tuesday is going to be hot, but they have facts and proof on their side. The defense did nothing wrong. So I think they're going to come in hot. I feel confident in what Nick is saying. I feel confident from the start in all of this. I would never think that Alan Jackson and Karen's defense team would ever put her in any position to compromise her case. I don't see it. But we're going to have to find out on Tuesday. That's the way I'm leaning. I know Maz is leaning that way as well. But we'll have to see what happens. Okay, what I need before we go off air here, if someone could be so kind, if I read off some totals, some numbers, if we can total it and we can find out what we're going to give back to Karen's defense fund. Does anybody have their trusty calculator out?
Yes.
Can one of my moderators help? Let's wait here for a second. And I'm sure someone can step up. I'm just going to read off a bunch of numbers and need you to total it. All right, Mary says calculator ready. All right, let's check our math here. Check our math. Okay, ready? Here we go. 20, 50, 50, 10, 5, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 2, 10, 10, 10, 15, 10, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 2, 5, 10, 5, 50, 10, 5, 5, 5.
And did you count the Richard Parnell 5 that just came in while you're reading?
I'm going to do that right
Okay,
now.
perfect.
And we're going to do a 5, add another $5 at the end. I meant that Bettero explains things to us in a language we all understand.
That's right.
I think Robert Alessi does that. I think actually Karen's whole team is very good at that.
Yes.
Is very good at that. So we're at 359.
Nice.
359, and we're going to do 25% of that. So it comes out to, it's about $89. I'm going to round it up to $100. And we're going to give, is that right? Yeah.
364 looks like was added to 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone's Paula Cat said 359 plus 5.
How about we just do this? Let's make it 400.
There you go.
Okay. So we're going to round it just to 400.
There we go. I'll tell
and
you
we'll
what
take 25% of that. My fuzzy math, that's $100.
There you go.
So we'll donate 100 to Karen Reed's Defense Fund. And I'll make that donation just after we get off air. And I'll post the receipt up on Facebook, my community page, and you can just go right to Karen Reed's Defense Fund link, and you'll see it will say LTL chat raiser with the date on it. Mazza, any last? I know you and I are going to be doing an exciting show on Thursday. If you want to let everybody know about that.
That is correct. So the Karen Reed belated birthday live fundraiser is going to be Thursday night at 6 p.m. That's 2/27. If you guys are keeping count of that date, not done by design. Someone pointed that out to me last night. But Karen's birthday is on the 26th. We're going to do the fundraiser the day after. Me, Brian, and Deanna are going to be on that show. Additionally, I'm going to have multiple guests each hour that are going to be kind of cycling in and on and off the show. It's going to be a 3-hour show at least. Multiple guests each hour. Brian is poised to be there.
Yep.
Deanna's poised to be there at the very close to the beginning. And then we'll see who else can come through. I got a few confirmed guests already, including 3 additional guests. I'm going to keep those secret right now.
Cool.
I have some other pending guests right now. They're getting ready to come on. So we're going to have a nice cycling of guests throughout the entire night. And we're going to do a live fundraiser. Last time I did it on my show, Brian was on there. We raised, between us and all the people that were in the chat, we were able to get $1,200 donated to Karen Reed's Defense Fund. And we're essentially trying to reach that amount again, or hopefully top it, maybe hit 1,500 to 2,000 this particular time around, which would be absolutely fantastic. So it'll be a great night. It'll be a 3-hour show Thursday night. Many guests, a lot of content creators, people have followed as well. And it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very big show for me in terms of just raising money for Karen. It's one of the big things that's near and dear to me, is just raising money for her defense fund. We all see what's happening right now in this Commonwealth's lack of restraint from ending this whole charade, and a judge that doesn't want to end this whole thing. And I think that we need to raise more money for her, and I like to do that through live fundraisers. And I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait for Thursday night. It's going to be a very, very big show. So I'm very, very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to join. We did this a couple Sundays ago, Super Bowl Sunday preview. We did like a preview.
That is correct.
Thing.
Yeah,
we did 2 back-to-back shows. We raised $1,200. And the great thing about it, Nick Rocco actually pulled the winner of the Free Karen Reed print that was signed by Karen and her whole family. And we ended up getting, I think, $2,000 off that. So that was like a $3,200 a day. By the way, the winner of the last print, I'm going to be sending that out to you tomorrow. So I'll get that out to you. I have it, just get it packed up, and we'll go from there. So again, $100, we're going to donate that to Karen Reed's Defense Fund. Every little bit helps. I want to appreciate everybody for coming in and watching us today here and having Mazza live here in the studio, dude. Thank you so much. So good to see you. We haven't caught up in person since like December. The benefit, the benefit Star Drive-In. But if you haven't already, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe on this channel if you are seeking the truth here in the Karen Reed case. And I cover many other cases on this channel. I just want to make people aware. Please go back if you haven't educated yourself yet and watch my lives and my videos on Robert Brooks. This is an inmate that was killed by 14 corrupt correctional officers. You need to educate yourself about this case. It's very important. It's very important because not only is this happening to Robert Brooks, it's happening to other inmates in and around this country, and the shit needs to stop. And these motherfuckers, they got caught. They got caught red-handed because their camera that they didn't activate, 4 of them turned on and caught these guys murdering him on camera. So please get yourself caught up on that. I had Todd McGee on my show the other night that walked through that horrible video that we had to watch of this murder, but he gave us his expertise and his thoughts on this. It's very important. So again, I am Brian. This is LTL Media. That is MazzaMedia. Thursday night, again, at what time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. He will be live, 3-hour super show, and I can't wait to be there. Thank you all so much for your donations. Thank you for your time this afternoon. And I also did an earlier show, if you didn't watch it, with Tom CPU and Boston Mike from the Seeking Justice page. Check it out. Check it out. I'm going to go get out of here. And again, I want to thank everybody for checking in. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.